situation. You have to take the information and apply it properly to yourself, which may require the help of a professional an expert who helps you. And every expert's not going to know everything. So you may have to consult more than one. So anyway, the point is don't take what we say here as advice to you. It is information, general information. We've been talking about what kinds of things we should discuss on there. And the nice thing about this Home Cures at Work is it's an open forum. We could have like anything. We could ask anything and we can talk about anything. So today we're going to talk about a very important subject. And you may not think it's important. It's constipation. And the first thing we want to do is define what constipation is, because it's not as simple. People come in, they say, I'm constipated. Well, how do you know? Well, I didn't go to the bathroom yesterday. I'm like, that doesn't mean you're constipated. So yeah, what is constipation actually? It is very simple. It's hard stool. That's it. If your poop is hard, you have constipation. If you go every day and it's hard, you have constipation. Does that make sense? It's not how often you go. In fact, normal people go anywhere from 3 times a day to every 3 days. And anything in between there is just fine, but that's not what determines constipation. It's how hard the stool is. So and people often, I had a guy who was chronically constipated, and that was one of his problems when he came in, and he didn't know it because he was like every other day or whatever, he'd have a bowel movement, and then so we put him on a diet, and he kept coming in and saying, okay, yeah, I'm all better, like I'm doing better, my stomach's working better and everything, but I have this diarrhea. We're going, diarrhea, gosh, I wonder. So we're trying probiotics, we're trying prebiotics, we're trying fiber, we're trying even like uh, um, what do you call that stuff that um oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, medications to stop diarrhea. Anyway, Lomotil. Yeah. And so we're trying this stuff. And he keeps coming back going, nope, still have constipation, still have constipation. Finally, I asked him, I'm still diarrhea, still diarrhea. I asked, what do you mean by diarrhea? He said, well, my stool, like my poop is like soft serve ice cream. It's like soft. And I'm like, well, that's normal. That's what it's supposed to be. He goes, no. He goes, no, no, no. When I used to go, I wouldn't even have to wipe. I would just have I go and I leave. And it was really clean and really nice. Now it's like I have to use a whole roll of toilet paper every single time because it's soft and it gets all over everything. And I'm like, oh, great. Um, it's not diarrhea. Softer is actually better because you're less likely to get hemorrhoids and um, and diverticulosis and diverticulitis if you have soft stool. So the whole idea really is to have soft stool and not have hard stool. And so, he thought it was very convenient to have hard stool in the sense of he didn't have to wipe. And now he says he has to take those, what is it, those baby wipes. Yeah, he says he carries a little packet of baby wipes with him now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we kind of know what maybe constipation really is, let's talk about ways to prevent this. So, I think Dr. Saunders' view on this may be a little different from others. I know a lot of people go to the doctor for this reason, and they're usually said to take, oh, what is it called? Um, Something that helps to kind of loosen their stools. Can't think of what it's called right now.
Oh, something like psyllium seed, uh, those kind of things,
Yeah, I'll think of it.
prebiotics,
Yeah, I'll think of it.
fiber,
Isn't it? Didn't you kind of tell me it's made of the same ingredients of like some type of fuel or gas or
lax. Oh, yeah, the propylene glycol. Yeah, it's an alcohol that's the same as antifreeze.
Yes. So what is
Yeah.
that called? What is the actual name?
Uh,
I don't know why I can't think of it. That's so funny. Okay, maybe somebody on. If you know what we're talking about, post it in the chat. Okay, let's go though. Uh Sib, that's hilarious. Oh man, the SH bleep bleep you learn here. So grateful.
yeah, literally.
That's funny. But this is a really big deal. I mean, I know a lot of people who really struggle with this. But now I think the conversations may change a little bit because what I'm learning is constipation isn't necessarily what we think it is. But what about those people who don't go for a week at a time? What is that?
Okay, that's a long time, and you might call that constipation. Usually, they're going to have hard stool if they've not gone for a week. That's and so it's really not the amount of time, although that is abnormal. If you haven't gone for more than 3 days, that's definitely abnormal. But the constipation is the hard stool. That's where the damage is done. That's where you get problems like hemorrhoids and diverticulosis. The colon problems is really from the hard stool. Yeah, if you haven't gone in a week and you have soft stool, then it's actually not a problem.
Interesting. Okay. The product that I was thinking of was Miralax, actually.
Miralax, yeah, that's it.
Yes. But I hear a lot of people that use that. And so instead of that, let's say we don't go that route. Maybe it isn't the healthiest thing you could do for yourself. What are your recommendations? I think you have four. So let's start. You share your wisdom with us, Dr. Saunders.
Okay, so number one is fiber. Number two is fiber. Number three is fiber. And number four is, let me think, fiber. So fiber is like so important for having bowel movements. Now, um, we think of fiber as eating roughage, and that's true. Fruit and vegetables have a lot of fiber in them. Beans have a lot of fiber in them. Beans, peas, lentils, legumes have a lot of fiber. Nuts and seeds have a lot of fiber. But there's fiber in meat as well. So people on a carnivore diet, it's really interesting that they're getting no vegetable fiber, but they get the protein fiber, things like collagen and keratin, proteins that are in the meat are also fiber, not fiber. Uh, in the literal sense. What I mean is they're non-digestible proteins that go into the large intestine and become digested by the bacteria that live there. And when somebody changes their diet, their bacteria change immediately, like the same day. It doesn't take a week to get your bacteria back. Whatever you're feeding is going to grow, and that's pretty much what all the research shows. So your diet makes a huge difference in what goes in to your or how your stool comes out, or whether it's soft or hard or whatever. And so people who have like even a carnivore or a diet, or on the other end a vegan diet, and either way can have soft stools and have normal stool. That's not the problem. But it seems like if you have any issues, bowel issues, that you could eat a high fiber diet. There's a book called Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bulsheviks. He is a gastroenterologist who started saying, this stuff, this medication that we're using for irritable bowel disease and inflammatory bowel disease is not working. What else can we do? And he looked around and he started using fiber and finding it works. Like people were getting better. People who had Crohn's disease were getting better. And so he wrote this book, Fiber Fueled, How to Keep Your Bowels Functioning Well with a High Fiber Diet. And so that is a really useful, like probably the most important thing is having enough fiber. So things a fiber field. There he is, Will Bolsheviks. Yeah. Yeah. There's yeah. And if you can spell that.
Yeah, right. So my question is, so I get to talk with some of the people that are on these webinars. Some people feel like um, some vegetables really increase their stool. So obviously it's working. It's a great option for constipation. What if it's too much? Do you hear that? I hear that from people that vegetables tend to go right through them. Is that the body adjusting?
Yeah, that's it's the way their bacteria work, it's the way their bowels work, and some people when they have a lot of fiber, they tend to get really soft stools, almost diarrhea, like it goes right through, like, gosh, I just ate that an hour ago and it's already coming out. Kind of thing. And there's a reason for that. They may have some inflammation in the bowel or something like that. And some types of fiber are going to move through a lot more quickly than other types of fiber. So some vegetables will do that more than others. Some fruits will do that more than others. I've had people who say they couldn't eat certain fruits because it'll go right through them, but they could eat a lot of other kinds of fiber, vegetables and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does. It does. It's different. So and everybody's different. Your the bacteria in your bowel are like a fingerprint. They are uniquely you, and nobody has the same set of bacteria that you do, unless you've had a stool transplant. Then you might have the same as somebody else,
Interesting.
which does happen, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, but that is going to affect how your stools are, whether you have constipation or not.
Okay. All right. So fiber, super important. Let me ask you this. So, yes, change your diet, adding in more fiber. How do you feel about our fiber product that we have? So we have fiber greens, and in fact, I'll pull that up. I'm someone who has to be a little bit careful with some of my vegetables, but I think this is a good option. Now, if you're having type 2, if you have type 2 diabetes, maybe not. There's a sweetener in this, so don't start with this. But I'm going to just share this on my screen so you guys can see it. And you let me know what your thoughts are about this and why this was created, Dr. Saunders.
It was created because we were looking for some way to increase fiber because it turns out it's a big deal, and a lot of people were having trouble getting up to 40 grams of fiber a day. And so they said, well, if you have a supplement. And a lot of the problems we were finding is that a lot of most fiber supplements only have one type of fiber. And eating that one type of fiber every single time is growing certain types of bacteria. And like Dr. Bolsheviks explains in his book, you need a variety. You need a lot of different kinds of fiber. So the fiber greens, you can see here, it contains, 6 different kinds of fiber. And the greens in it have fiber also, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber. Um, and that's how the good bacteria grow, is by having these prebiotics. So on the one hand, it's growing good bacteria. On the other hand, it's helping to move things through and prevent constipation.
Okay, and I'm going to share this. You can go to Barton Nutrition. We have a lot of different sites you can go to, but bartonnutrition.com, use code, hold on, webinar 25 to save 25%. That's one word. Let's see. Someone said, so when is the best time to take it, with food or just by itself?
Yeah, anytime. It doesn't matter. Fiber, pretty much if okay, so you want an empty stomach, so yeah, take it with food. Just you don't need to take it on an empty stomach. I think that's the point. And it does have a sweetener in it. Because like people didn't like it when it didn't have a sweetener in it. So it does have a sweetener in it, which if you have diabetes, I kind of recommend against that. There are better ways to get fiber if you have diabetes. Just like eat a lot of vegetables, especially brassica vegetables, and have some nuts and seeds, and uh, get fiber that way.
Okay. Yeah, just plain like psyllium husk taste doesn't really taste very good. So It is good to have a little something in there. Many of you have probably gotten an email that talks about kind of the fiber treat where you mix it with water and put it in the freezer. And that is an option. We like to do that. So,
Fiber popsicles.
yep, we hear about that. Or fiber ice cream, we hear that. Okay. Roy
I've
says
heard of that.
I use it for my mid-morning energy boost. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Let's move on. So fiber is important. Number two, what else? What else is
What
important?
else? Okay. So something else that's important is to avoid what causes constipation. Now, what are those things? Well, you're different than everybody else. And if you find something that causes constipation, then avoid that. And for some people, it's eating white flour products. That's a fairly common one that it allows them or causes them to get constipation. Another common one is milk, and but milk for a totally different reason. It's not just because it doesn't have any fiber in it. It's because the milk proteins, when they're broken down, they make small peptides, and these peptides are like hormones, and they bind to opiate receptors. So if you've ever used Imodium, Imodium is something that causes constipation or prevents diarrhea, right? It slows down the bowel. Well, that's exactly what milk does. These little peptides that bind to the opiate receptors bind to the same receptors as Imodium and just slow down your bowel and make you constipated. So it's a kind of a common problem with milk products. People who have a problem with the sugar in milk called lactose get diarrhea. People who have a problem with the protein in milk get constipation. And so if you've noticed milk is an issue, then that's a problem. And white flour products and white rice products, and they're so having starches without fiber sometimes cause people to get constipation as well.
Okay. Let's see. Pat had said during a fast, can I drink green or ginger tea?
Green tea, ginger tea without any sweeteners or anything in it. Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
All right. So let's go. Let's move on. What is another
Okay.
helpful tip here for constipation?
Okay. So number three is don't get dehydrated. If you're dehydrated and you don't have enough water in your system, your colon actually sucks water out of the stool and makes it into bricks. And some people who are dehydrated, they take like psyllium seed or they take pills, those FiberCon pills, and they're popping fiber pills, and the pills suck up a lot of water and they're not drinking enough water to make it all go down. So then what ends up happening is that all that fiber is just making bricks in their colon, and it's not helpful. It's not helping them. So people who say, no, 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 fiber makes me constipated, often that's because of dehydration. Now, there's a couple of things to think about here, and that is dehydration is not just a lack of water. That's obviously a part of it, and often that's the case. But people who are drinking tons of water and have hard stool, then they have to look for different reasons, and that is a lack of sodium and a lack of potassium. So there's three different kinds of dehydration. One is a lack of water, another is a lack of sodium, another lack of potassium. And probably the most common is a lack of potassium, because we get a lot of sodium in our food, but we don't get a lot of potassium. So if you eat beans, for example, they have a lot of potassium, but it's not usually a staple food for Americans, right? We have other things. Avocados are a good source of potassium, and potatoes are a good source of potassium. So people get this kind of stuff, but they're often not staple foods. Things like wheat, bread is not a good source of potassium. Meat is not a good source of potassium. So, some fruit juices are, but then I always tell people don't drink fruit juice because it causes diabetes. So getting potassium, if you're eating a lot of fruit and vegetables, especially fresh, but even even cooked, boiled, whatever fruits and vegetables, um, you're going to get potassium from that. Beans, peas, and lentils. Those are good source of both fiber and potassium. And so if you're not dehydrated, that really helps a lot to have normal stool.
All right. Okay, so fiber is important. Getting to the root cause of what's causing your constipation, dehydration, and do we have another one?
Yeah.
I don't know what the other one is.
Um, Probiotics, making sure you have bacteria. People hundreds of years ago and thousands of years ago, it was everybody had probiotics in their diet. Like peas porridge in the pot 9 days old had a ton of bacteria in it, and things that were fermented, and yogurts and all that stuff. Today, everything is pasteurized and sterilized and irradiated, heated, and even chemically burned it to denature all the proteins in it so that no bacteria can grow in it. So we have nice sterile food that doesn't go bad, but we also don't get any probiotics. We don't get any bacteria. So now we have to take these pills, and you know what the pills are? They're colon bacteria. So you think of it as kind of like poop, right? Because you're getting bacteria. I know it sounds yucky, but you got to get the bacteria somewhere, and most of the time, the colon is not going to continuously grow this bacteria. You have to replenish that supply regularly. And that's something Dr. Bolsheviks talks about in his book, how important it is to get a continuous supply of bacteria. Now, if you take a probiotic and you get just this one type of bacteria, then you're missing a lot because, bacteria in your colon, there's 500, more than 500 different types of bacteria in your intestines. And to get just one type, one species, it may help, and some people do help. I had an elderly man who was constipated, and so we talked about fiber and getting some bacteria, and the fiber wasn't that good, but so he went to the store. Health food store, went in the refrigerator and bought the most expensive one. Ooh, this is really good. It's got a lot of bacteria in it, and you have to keep it refrigerated, so it keeps its potency. And then, meanwhile, his wife, who was in the room with him when we talked about it, was walking through the grocery store, pushing her cart, and says, "Oh yeah, my husband needs one of these," and pulls the cheapest probiotic off the shelf because they're expensive, right? You're thinking you're spending what, $40 a month on this bacteria, but that's what it takes. So she just got the cheapest one because some of them are really expensive. So the funny thing was that his super expensive refrigerated probiotic didn't help at all. And so he started taking the one she got, and it worked. Like he got normal stool, soft stool, and it wasn't constipated anymore. So you can't know. I mean, how do you know if I choose that one or that one? Your bacteria are different than anybody else's bacteria, so you choose one. If that doesn't work, then try a different one. If that doesn't work, try a different one. Just keep trying different ones until you find something that works. You go, aha, this works for me. And so that's the bacteria that you need to balance out the bacteria in your colon. Because they are different. Different brands of probiotics have different bacteria in them. And some of them are spore-forming bacteria, and then there's soil organisms, and then there's lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and all kinds of different ones. So, just try this, try that until you get one that really helps.
All right. Love it. So I'm also curious, does sleep affect your digestion?
Um, Gosh, I don't know. I'm
Oh,
sure I know it works the other way around. So if you eat at night, it affects your digestion in the sense of if you eat at night, um, as you're digesting and absorbing this food, the liver is kind of shut down. It doesn't process things very well. So you store it in your fat mostly. So all the toxins that you're making is stored in the fat, and a lot of the nutrients and stuff get stored in the fat. So eating at night does change the way you digest and absorb food, yes. But I don't know if it affects like constipation or anything like that.
Okay, interesting. Mary had said, what is the best medication for IBS? We almost need to do just a separate webinar on IBS itself because it seems like more and more and more people are diagnosed with IBS.
Yeah. So irritable bowel syndrome is not a disease. So there isn't a medication for it. It is a condition. And it's a condition with multiple different causes. So you can get irritable bowel syndrome from anxiety, and it has nothing to do with anything in your intestines anyway. You can have irritable bowel syndrome from your autonomic nervous system dysfunction. You can have irritable bowel syndrome from having bad bacteria in your intestines. You can get gas and bloating and pain. The syndrome is gas, bloating, pain, diarrhea, and or constipation. You can get both diarrhea, constipation, pain. Um, but the difference is between irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease, which can have a lot of the same symptoms, is the inflammatory bowel disease is actually inflammation and often has blood in the stool. So it's like the intestines, the lining of the intestines is sloughing off, and you get mucus and blood and all that. Whereas with irritable bowel syndrome, it's more of diarrhea, constipation, gas, bloating, pain, kind of those kinds of symptoms.
Okay.
So, what the question was, what medication can I take for IBS? And the answer is find out first why, because it's a syndrome. And if the problem is the bacteria in your intestines, then that's what you need to take. If the problem is inflammation in your intestines, like I don't know, a parasite or something, then you need to get rid of that. If you're having a reaction to some kind of food, then you need to get off that food. If you're getting gas and bloating from diaphragmatic spasm or something, then you need to work on your autonomic nervous system. So every cause is going to have a very different treatment. So find the cause first.
Okay. Maria says, does the color of the soft stool matter? Light, dark, etc.
Well, probably not. That has more to do with what you ate, and so uh, some things as they're processed in the stool or processed in the colon or in the intestines, they change colors, and a lot of that color does come from something called biliverdin, which is from your breakdown of your blood vessels. The hemoglobin goes through the liver, and the liver makes the hemoglobin into bilirubin, which is excreted in the stool, in the bile, and that's why bile is green or yellow. And then that kind of makes the stool be brown. And if it's light brown, there's usually less of it. If it's yellow, there might be more bilirubin in it. That's not an issue.
Okay. Charles says certain oils and sulfites can create real havoc with digestion and discomfort. I spent thousands to discover that fried foods cause a lot of problems.
Oh yeah, that's the point that I was making in number two is if you're sensitive to any kind of food, that's something that you have to avoid. I've had people have to get off strawberries and tomatoes, and here you have somebody with oils, the oils in the fried foods with all those omega-6 PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. Yeah, they can cause a problem. So, but not necessarily for everybody, but see, that's your problem. And so that's why you have to deal with that. And it can take a while, but if you know you're looking for that, if you know you're going, okay, there's something I'm eating that's creating this problem, and then you do an elimination. Okay, I'm going to go off, tomatoes and see if that works. Oh, I'm going to go off gluten, do gluten free. I'm going to go off dairy, do so you go off whatever might cause the problem, and yeah, another one is oils, omega-6 oils especially.
Interesting. Sib says, so since IBS is not a disease, does that mean it's not hereditary?
Um, Well, gosh, the tendency to have bowel issues is still does run in families, and so there's a big question: is this a problem of the fact that we're in the same family, we eat the same things, we do the same things, or is it like an issue of that's the way my system responds to my nervousness or autonomic nervous system or something? Or is this like we share our bacteria, kissing and all that stuff? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's not necessarily hereditary, but it does, you do tend to see more run in families.
Interesting. What are your thoughts about different genetic breaks or gene mutations and things like that? How that might affect your colon?
Okay, genetic breaks and gene mutations can have huge effects. Some people have to take fucose, for example, because their genes that are supposed to produce this fucose, which feeds the good bacteria, especially when there's some inflammation or something or bad bacteria start growing in it, then your colon actually says, uh-oh, we got to get rid of this bad bacteria, and starts putting out food called fucose for the good bacteria so that the good bacteria start growing and take over and get rid of the bad bacteria. Some people don't do that. And so whenever they get bad bacteria, they just get diarrhea, inflammatory bowel disease, constipation. They're just having all these colon problems, gas, bloating, because of the bad bacteria. And so genetically speaking, you have to work around your genes by getting a lot of fucose in your diet if you have that. So eating a whole bunch of mushrooms or seaweed are usually the only things that contain that type of sugar.
Interesting. Okay. All right. We don't have any more questions, so I guess we covered most of it. Anything else anyone like to ask before we go? So we talked about,
Dang.
I know the ways to what did we call this? 4 ways to prevent constipation and fiber, figure out what's causing it. Dehydration, you need to address dehydration, make sure you're hydrated in whichever way you need to be. Um, and then we talked about probiotics or introducing different bacteria. Oh, I was going to ask a question about that too. So, what do you think about? Um, so, let's say you find a probiotic that works for you. Would it be good to mix it up every once in a while and maybe don't take it and then take it again for a while? Or, because you don't want your body to get so used to this, or maybe you only eat certain foods because then, like for example, I traveled somewhere, ate different foods, and I didn't do so well. I'm just curious about that.
That is really interesting. Because in the one sense, yes. In another sense, there's sort of a um, equilibrium that's achieved, and if you have this probiotic every day, then you kind of keep it around. Um, so I don't know. This bacteria in your colon. Science is so new. We don't know anything about it really. We don't, it's like this whole universe of the colon has more bacteria in it than you have cells in your whole body. And there's different types of bacteria. They interact with each other. They make biofilms. They just do all kinds of stuff. There's just like this whole universe going on inside of your colon, and it's just like a huge black box that we don't know much about at all. And so the way we do this is it's all trial and error. They test people and they ask them, "Do you have normal bowels?" "Yeah, I have normal bowels." Okay. So then they test all their bacteria and they go, "Okay, this is what normal bowels looks like." And then they test somebody else and they say, oh, yeah, I have normal bowels. And they go, this is what normal bowels looks like, testing all the bacteria. And they're different. And so how do you know what normal is if everybody's different? Everybody has sort of their bacterial fingerprint in their intestines. It's just not that easy. So there's a lot of research being done, of course, on it now. And there's certain bacteria that show up and go, oh, this is consistently an issue. The lactobacillus, for example, is consistently, you know, it's not going to stay in your intestines. You should probably take a lactobacillus pill periodically at least. Oh, that's a good question. Your question was, do you have to take it every day? Oh, and the answer is no. It actually hangs around for days up to a week. And so I often, when I give people high dose probiotics, I tell them, take it every day for 5 days and then take it once a week and see how you do on that. And that often works pretty well.
Yeah, Roy had said, I do find that if I take two probiotic pills, they end up with loose stools. So I often take just one to avoid the loosey goosey. And they want to see your Christmas tree, Dr. Saunders. I don't even know if you're at your house, but
Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree. Let's see.
oh, we got a little here. Let me change my view so they can see it differently too.
I don't know. There.
It's
Can you
blurry,
see it
but
now?
no, I
I
think
ha
you have your background blurry.
it's blur. I have a background blur, but what if it's not the background?
Maybe if you go
Uh,
from,
anyway, yeah, that's my
you
Christmas
get the
tree.
idea. You can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, Sid said over the last 3 months, when I go to the bathroom, number two, there's nothing there to clean. Stools typically 7 to 8 inches and no other issues. Is that right? 7 to 8.
Okay. Okay. Well, if it's soft, I mean, so what does soft mean? Well, it can be formed and still be soft. As if it's not hard and coming out like rocks or painful or anything like that, then that's where constipation comes in. It's not that you have to have, mushy stools that have to be cleaned up with diaper wipes, but or baby wipes. That's fine if your stools are formed, and then that's okay.
Right. One thing we have not talked about is, let me hold on. I'll show you. Let me pull up a picture. This is something that I have. And hold on. Oh, it's not going to load. I wonder why it won't show you guys. Well, the brand is called a Tushy, and this is a bidet that you attach to your toilet. So, how many of you have bidets? This is supposed to be really good for you to use a bidet instead of toilet paper or as much toilet paper. And there's supposed to be some benefits to it. Do you know much about bidets? I mean, they use them even
Uh,
here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Many years ago, I was looking through the constipation kind of stuff and all that, and I found an article on bidets and how important it was to have a clean anus, and and so since that time, I'm like, gosh, I wonder if I should get a bidet. I've never gotten one.
When we travel, of course, they have them. And now I'm seeing them in more and more homes. But anyway, since we're talking about all things related to that, I thought I'd bring that up. So, all right. I think that's it for us today. You guys, thank you for
Hey,
hanging out. So I
all right.
believe next week we will not be here on Wednesday, but we will be here on Thursday, right? Wednesday's New Year's Day.
Yeah, the plan
Okay.
is to be here on Thursday.
Yes. Okay. So we will see you
All
then.
right.